you all? Would you all please remain standing for the presentation of colors? Pose. The colors. Breathe in. Arm. Order. Arm. Pose. Colors first. Arm. Pose. Arm. Would you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and please remain standing afterwards for the playing of our national anthem. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our annual Veterans Day ceremony. I would like to personally welcome all the students, teachers, faculty, school board members, community members, and most importantly,
our honored veterans that are here with us today. Veterans Day marks a very special day for our nation as we celebrate and honor the bravery, valor, and service of all the men and women of our armed forces. I am sure I can speak for all of us here today when I say I am grateful for all you have done and continue to do to keep our nation safe and free. We are honored to have you represent Littleton and take pride in your dedication and sacrifice. Thank you for giving us the opportunity today to honor you. And I would also like to at this time recognize that we have 5 World War II veterans, so thank you for your service.
Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Howard graduated from Littleton High School in 1964. Throughout his high school years, he played basketball and baseball. After graduation, he went to the University of New Hampshire. In 1968, he graduated with his bachelor's in psychology. Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Howard graduated from the New Hampshire National Guard Officer Candidate School in 1975 and the U.S. Army Field Artillery Basic Course in 1976. 4 years later, he graduated from the U.S. Army and Advanced Artillery course in 1980. In 1998, he became a graduate of the U.S. Army Command and General Staff College. Former Commander of Service, Battery, 2nd Battalion, and the 197th Field Artillery in Littleton, Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Howard is also the former Commander of Headquarters, Detachment of the New Hampshire State Area Command for the New Hampshire Army National Guard in Concord, New Hampshire. For 34 years, he serviced in the New Hampshire Army National Guard. Today, Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Howard is the crossing guard at Lakeway School, where he continues to serve our community.
Thank you, Phoebe. Thank you. School board members, students of Littleton High School, faculty. Yes, as you heard, I started out just like most of you. I attended Lakeway Elementary School, and 50 years ago, this year, I received my diploma right on this stage, just like most of you students are going to in the future. After my marriage to my wife, Patty, who also graduated from Littleton High School, we tried to decide where we were going to settle down. Initially, we thought Burlington, Vermont, on Lake Champlain. But in the end, we decided to come home, to settle right here in Littleton, in a beautiful little town, nestled in the White Mountains, raise our family here. Why were we able to choose Littleton? Why? Because the United States of America is a free country. We have the freedom to choose where we're going to live. We have the freedom to choose where you want to go to college, or technical school, or trade school. You have the freedom to choose what you want to become. That freedom has been safeguarded throughout our history by the service of our veterans. World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the war in Vietnam, the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan. Our veterans have served to keep this a free, democratic society. I'm sure on the world news you've all noticed unrest in various parts of this world. You see people in foreign countries rioting in the streets. They're throwing rocks and debris and bottles at their own troops. You see troops that open fire on their own people. You say to yourself, what is the matter with these people? Why are they so upset? Why are they so angry? They're so angry and upset because they're not free. They're in a country where a dictator or a tyrant is oppressing them. They don't have the freedom to choose the life they want to live. I have 5 grandchildren. One just recently graduated from Littleton High School. I have one in the audience today. I won't mention her name because she's very shy. I have one at Lakeway Elementary School. And I have 2 that live in Massachusetts. My daughter's 2 grandchildren, Jason and Maggie, are 5 and 4. When they come to visit Littleton, Jason, the 5-year-old boy, is a very inquisitive little guy. He wants to know everything about when his grandfather and grandmother lived, what they did when they were young. We ride around town. I show him the home where his grandmother, my wife Patty, grew up. He wants to know where the apartment on Hill Street, where I grew up. Well, the last time he was here, I took him through the Glenwood Cemetery to show him the grave of his great-grandmother, Honey Tan, and his great-grandfather, Paul Tan, who served in World War II. We're driving through, and I say, there's where Grandpa Paul and Nana Honey are buried. And Jason says, look, Grandpa Paul has a miniature American flag. Why doesn't everyone have one? And I said, well, that's because Grandpa Paul served in World War II. He was a veteran. And Jason said, oh, he must be special. Yes, Jason, you're right. Veterans are special. Those little flags on cemeteries throughout this country indicate that the person buried there served his country in some way. They gave a piece of their life, 2 years, 4 years, maybe 20 years, but they sacrificed a piece of their life to keep us all free. Veterans are everywhere. Look at your program. Look at the veterans right in this community that teach at your school. You have a whole list of them. They're in your community, they're in your school, and in your family. I will be willing to bet that almost every single student here has a mother or a father or a brother or a sister or an aunt or an uncle or a grandmother or grandfather that has served in the military. Veterans Day is a day to thank them for their service. And also, remember to thank the people that were left behind. Whenever someone goes to war, there's a spouse, a husband, or a wife that's left home to carry the burden. They're left home alone to bring the kids up. Thank them on Veterans Day. As most of you know, I'm a die-hard Crusader fan. In my household, Crusaders are number one. But at every single basketball game today, I would like to recognize a family in Littleton that has a legacy of service to this country. At every home and away basketball game, there are 2 loyal Crusader fans. They sit in that row of bleachers right over there, about 4 rows up. So Mr. Mike Cassidy and Mr. Joel LaCroix. Mr. Cassidy himself had a career of merit. He served 30 years in the New Hampshire Army National Guard. But Mr. Joel LaCroix, his family's legacy is worth noting. When Joe and Jeanette LaCroix settled in Littleton after Joe retired from the United States Air Force, they have 5 children. Listen to this family service. Joe spent 25 years in the United States Air Force. Oldest son, Rick, spent 20 years in the United States Air Force. The middle son, Steve, is U.S. Army. Middle son, Steve, 20 years, United States Air Force. Jim, the third son, 24 years in the United States Coast Guard. Youngest son, John, who was an all-state power forward on this undefeated 1990 Littleton High basketball team, served 23 years in the United States Air Force, and he's still serving. And their daughter, Vicki, served 3 years in the United States Air Force. Her husband at this time is a full bird colonel, basically in charge of the whole state of Alaska. And they have a granddaughter who is a captain Army nurse in the Army today. You math students can do the math. Just in their immediate family, they have 117 years of military service. Joe, would you just stand for a second? Jeanette, would you just stand for a second? So when you go to the basketball games this fall and you see Joe, I want you students to say thanks. Not just for his service, but for the legacy he's left behind. As we look to the future, the service of the veterans I've talked about today, that service is over. It's done. They've done their part. They've given the little piece of their life. If we are to remain a free and democratic country, we're going to need continued service by our young people. Hoping that some of you, after you graduate from Littleton High School, will consider serving in our military. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, Army National Guard, Air National Guard, Marine Corps Reserve, Coast Guard Reserve, Naval Reserve. You will find that that service is life-changing. If you've ever looked into the face of any of these veterans as they tell their stories of service, you'll understand what freedom really means and how much it changed their lives. You'll never forget that experience. As the holidays approach and your family is gathered around the Thanksgiving table and around the Christmas tree, remember that there are thousands of servicemen and women throughout this world that are somebody's mother, father, brother, sister, uncle, aunt, grandmother, or grandfather, and they are not home for the holidays. They're serving in some remote part of the world to protect your freedom. When we get up in the morning, we take it for granted. We don't think, oh, here's another free day in America. We don't think like that. We expect it. It's not like that in a lot of the places in this world. Take a moment during these holiday season, just silently to yourself, say thanks for your service. In closing, I'm sure you've heard you're having a squabble with one of your brothers or sisters or one of your friends, and the argument's getting heated. You're about ready to come to blows when all of a sudden an adult or one of your teachers comes along and they say, "What's the matter? Why are you guys fighting? What are you angry over?" You explain it to them. And they say to you, "Well, I can see why you're so upset, but that's not worth fighting over." Well, freedom is an exception to that rule. Freedom is worth fighting over. And our veterans have fought many of them have died making sure we remain free. So I'd like to thank you as I close. Thank Mrs. Connie Ward for organizing and orchestrating this beautiful event. And Mr. Babin, I see he helped her a lot today. And in closing, don't ever take our freedom for granted, because as one wise man once said, our freedom is not free. Thank you.
Today we are observing Veterans Day, a very special holiday. We celebrate many holidays such as Easter, Christmas, and Thanksgiving by gathering with family and friends and enjoying traditional festivities. Often the reasons we are celebrating get forgotten as we get caught up in sheer joy. Today we are acknowledging a holiday that warrants all the same attention and certainly deserves a moment of reflection to appreciate the purpose and motivation behind this day. Veterans Day is of paramount significance. It is a very important and honorable day marked to pay tribute to every man and woman who has served in our country's armed forces. Because of these many brave men and women, our country is known across the world as the greatest nation on earth. We are afforded many rights and privileges because of their sacrifices. Thanks to them, we can function in a society geared toward individual success and a motivation to make our lives what we want them to be. Thanks to them, we can be in charge of our destiny. Charles M. Province, a veteran of the U.S. Army, very eloquently put it into words when he said, "It is the soldier, not the minister, who gave us freedom of religion. It is the soldier, not the reporter, who has given us freedom of the press. It is the soldier, not the post, who has given us freedom of speech. It is the soldier, not the campus organizer, who has given us freedom to protest. It is the soldier, not the lawyer, who has given us the right to a fair trial. It is the soldier, not the politician, who has given us the right to vote. It is the soldier who salutes the flag, who serves beneath the flag, and whose coffin is draped by the flag, who allows the protester to burn the flag. We are all very busy living our lives in a manner that we are privileged to live, and it can be very easy to take it for granted. Veterans Day is the one day a year that we need to take real time to realize and acknowledge that freedom is not just a given. It is earned by the many men and women who sacrifice and fight for our country. So on this day, I want you all to take some real time and appreciate what our veterans have done for us, what they are still doing for us, and what we hope they continue to do for us. If you know a veteran, go out of your way to offer your sincere gratitude. Veterans are undoubtedly the most selfless people, and you will likely find that they are not boastful or expecting of praise. They are very proud individuals, as they should be. We need to share in their respect for our country and what it takes to maintain its superiority. I'm going to end today with some wise words spoken by President Ronald Reagan. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same, or one day we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like in the United States when men were free. Thank you.
At this time, would you all please stand for the flag ceremony? Following the flag ceremony, we would like to invite all veterans and their guests to join us in the cafeteria for refreshments.